Hey everyone, it's Miss Gubrood, and this video is about how to do your best on the test. This is a study strategy. The study strategy that we're talking about is making your own game. You probably remember we've been talking about this, and we made our own game this week during our small group directions and discussions. So I'm making this video to help us in case we forgot how to do it or we forgot why we're doing it. So study strategies, how to study for the test. This is a when a test is near, but it could also be an each week. You can actually do it each week. But studying is, a test is coming up. You want to be able to do your best. So one of the things kids tell me that's really hard is identifying things. Let's see if I can get my pointer here to work. Identifying things that they still need to learn. In other words, it's really hard to know what you don't know. That's tricky. It's very tricky because we want to do some digging in to learn what we don't know so we can figure out what we still need to study. One of those techniques is going over each and every lesson to identify the things we know and we don't know. How are we going to do that? In this case, we're going to make a game. So let's get started talking about our game. So here, we're going to design and make our own game. Now, what? We're going to make our own board game or card game. You can make a card game too. Why? We want to do it so we can have fun and practice the skills and concepts that we're learning in class. How are we going to do it? Well, first of all, we have to design what to make our game board about. We know that since we're having a math test coming up, it's Unit 1, it's about ratios and proportions. That's what we need our game to be about. But this can work for anything you want to learn, anything you want to study, not just in 6th grade, but throughout your whole career and even your whole life. It's kind of fun to invent your own games. So you're to think about all the parts of the lesson that we need to learn about. That's why when we made our game board, we made a lesson 1-1 spot, lesson 1-2, lesson 1-3, 1-4, 1-5, all the path all the way to lesson 1-11 or 15, because there's 15 lessons in this particular unit. So especially in math, you want to go in order, in chronological order, because one idea builds on another. It gets harder and harder through the unit. So you want to start with 1-1. You also want to be systematic about making sure that you cover each of those lessons so you don't miss something. So you don't have to try to guess like, I can't really remember what I don't know. It's really hard to know what you don't know. Instead, if you go lesson by lesson by lesson, you'll come across things. You're like, there's something I know that I don't know that I need help with, and it'll help you identify those things you need to do more practicing with. So next, you're going to decide how your game will work. Are you going to draw cards? Are you going to roll dice? Will there be an element of chance, or is it just straight skill and knowledge? Do you want to be silly? Do you want to be serious? Maybe some of both. Ours was a little bit of both. How will you practice the skill? So you decide that when you're making your own game. Now, I invented this game, so I got to make those decisions. Design your game board. There's my game board. But remember, I told you your game board could look a little different, but it has to have the same elements. It has to have a space for each of our lessons. Then, invent the rules. You get to invent the rules. You want to make the game fun and challenging for everyone. So remember, the point of making this game to study is to have it be fun and also to learn. And then as you play, and when you've played with me, you know that you all helped me change the rules as we went just slightly, or make a new rule to make it better. So as you play the game, add to or change the things that you designed earlier to make the game better. Remember, you made the game, so you can change it in any way you want. So let's get started and talk about our game in case you've forgotten how to play. And you'd like to play either with friends virtually, which can be a really fun way to practice, to study together. Get on a big Google Meet and say, hey, let's all play the math game together to practice. Or with your family also can be really fun. So remember, we're going to start with lesson 1-1. So we open our book to lesson 1-1. There it is. Oops, I'm on the second page. It's on page 5 and 6 in our student activity book. There it is, Unit 1, Lesson 1. Now, you'll notice that in 1-1, there are only 3 problems. It's not a lot of problems in and 1. Now, yours is probably filled out, and it should be, because you've already done this. In fact, we did this weeks ago. We did it at the very beginning of the school year. So this is probably filled out for you. Don't let that trick you. When we're playing this game, you're not just going to copy down what you have in your book. In fact, there's 2 reasons you don't want to do that. The first reason is that was very beginning of the year. You maybe got it wrong and you didn't know how to do it because we were just starting. And now we've been learning and learning and learning. And so now you're like, oh, I got that wrong. And now I know what happened that I got it wrong. So you might just have it wrong. So you don't want to copy it down. The second reason is sometimes what happens to kids is they understand it when we do the lesson. They understand it when they're watching me do the video and then help them through and walk them through. They understand it. And then later it kind of falls out of their brain. That's how learning goes. Sometimes we put stuff in and a little bit falls out. We put something back in and a little bit more falls out. We put it back in and pretty soon it stays. So what happens and how we know if it's something that we still need to more practice on, maybe you got it right when you did it the first time, but now you don't know how to do it. You've forgotten. And you won't know that if you just copy down what you've got on your paper. So instead, you're not going to, even though mine is not filled out here, if yours is filled out, you're not just going to copy your answer down. You're going to resolve the problem on a different piece of paper. So how are you going to know which problem to solve? This is how the game goes. So here's my element of chance. I have dice involved in my game. And you'll notice that I'm using a whole variety of different dice. Some have 4 sides, some have 10 sides, some 12, some 20. You might not have actual physical dice. No worries. Just open up a new tab on your computer like I've got open right here, and you'll see all the different dice. Now, this problem that we were just looking at, this lesson 1-1, this round only has a total of 3 questions. So I need to use a D4, a 4-sided dice, because all the rest wouldn't work. So there's my D4. It has 4 on it. It's a triangle. So there it is. So I'm going to roll and I got a 1. So that means I'm going to do problem 1. If I was playing with someone else, which I hope you are, and not doing just making a video by yourself like I am, then they're going to also have their own dice. They're going to roll. And so you'll all be doing different problems, or maybe some of the same. So I roll and it tells me I'm doing problem 1. So I go here to problem 1 and I copy that down. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. I'm going to pause and copy down my question. All right, I copied down my question. So if you're playing along, learning how to play the rules, hopefully you've also rolled your D4. Remember, if you roll a 4, you just roll again because there's no number 4, and copy down your problem. Now I need to solve my problem. All right, there we go. I've solved my problem. Now, before I collect my points, I need to check my answer. This is really important when you're trying to use playing a game to help you study for a test. It doesn't make sense to just do a problem and then go on and not know if you did it correctly, because otherwise, what's going to happen? If you make a mistake when you're practicing, what's going to happen when you get to the test? Probably going to make that same mistake and you won't do as well as you want. So I need to go check my answer. What I'm going to do is go into my Math Google Classroom like I always do, go into classwork like we always do, scroll down past this week's lessons, past assignments, till I get to my student activity book. And I'm looking right here for my student activity book answer key. I'm going to click on that. There it is. Now, this is the answer key of everything in our whole student activity book, including all of the lessons, including all of the quick quizzes in the book, and including the review in the book. Yes, I'm giving it to you because I want you to be able to see, how am I doing? Is there something I need to fix? Am I understanding? So I'm going to click on Unit 1, Lesson 1, because that's what we're on right now. That's the round we're on. And I'm going to click on it. There it is. Now, I'm going to scroll down to problem number 1. You can see right there. Here's problem number 1. And here's how it shows it should be done. And take a look at how I did it. So I can say, yeah, I'm on the right track. Great. So this is how I solved round 1. Now, what's my score? My score is the 35. Your score that you get on each round is whatever the answer to your problem is. Now, I can tell you, as we've been playing with different kids through different groups, this first round has I either could solve one of them and find the answer as 35. I could solve a different problem and find the answer as 56, I could solve a different problem and find the answer is 14. Yes, that's the element of chance in this game. You all could solve the problems correctly, and still there's quite a difference in score. Someone might score 56 on this one round. Someone might score 14 on this round. Someone might score 35 on this round. When you go to the next round, we're going to have that same element of chance. What is the answer? Whatever the actual answer to the problem is, that's your score. So my score right now is 35. Now, I'm going to go on to the next lesson. So the next lesson 1-2. So I go into my book and I page through, or in this case, I scroll down to lesson unit 1, lesson 2. Now notice how many problems lesson 2 has. Holy cow, there's a ton of them. That's a lot of problems. I can't use the D4, the 4-sided dice. So I have to go to my online dice roller and get rid of that D4. I don't want that D4 anymore, but I do want a D12 because I want to be able to get any of the problems from 1 through 12. So I'm going to roll. And I got a number 1. So number 1, okay, there it is. So I'm going to go back and I have to solve problem number 1. All of my people that I'm playing with are also rolling their own 12-sided dice, and they're all going to get one different or the same number. So depend on what problem you get, that depends on what the score is that you get for that when you solve it correctly. So I have to solve problem number 1. All right, there I did. I solved problem number 1. Now you see my answer was 6. That's not a lot. I can tell you that some of the answers on some of these problems are like 72, 63. So if you were playing with someone who on round 2, they got 72 and you got 6, that gets a little tricky, but not to worry. You'll have more chances all through the game. That's the element of chance in this game. Remember, once you get your answer, you go back and look in the student answer key. Student activity book answer key. There's unit 1, lesson 2. So we're going to click on lesson 2. There it is. So take a look. Did I get the same answer as the answer key? Make sure you're checking that. Now, you might say, uh-oh, what if I got it wrong? You know what? The purpose of this game is to have fun and to learn. So the question is, can you fix it up? If I looked and said, oh, I totally got that wrong, and I can go back and rethink it and refigure it out, and I can learn and figure it out, I still get my points. Now, in this case, there are only 6 of them, but I still get my points. If you're totally stumped, if you say, I don't even know how to get started, the good news about this game is you're already hopefully playing with family, or you're playing maybe online with a group of friends. You can ask for help. Remember, the purpose of the game is to have fun and to learn. So you can say, hey, everyone, I'm supposed to do number 7. I'm having a hard time getting started. Can someone help me? Your friends, your family, the people you're playing with can help you get started. You work on it, solve it. As soon as you do the solving and you solve it correctly, whether it's the first time or the third time, you still get the points. So before I had 35 points, now I got 6 more. So my score was 35 plus 6. So my total now is 41. Now, you're going to keep going like that, going lesson by lesson by lesson. Each lesson, you're going to need to see which dice to roll, and it might be different. Now, incidentally, the singular of dice is die, but it's a little tricky to say, and sometimes that confuses people. So if you're hearing me say dice and you're thinking, that's only one she's rolling, the singular is die. I would roll a die, but that gets tricky for kids to understand. So I'm using the word dice. Okay, so let's take a look. We go back to this. That's our answer key. We go back to our, what am I trying to find here? Here we go. We go back to, now we're on lesson 1-3. All right, we scroll down. There's 1-3. I can tell you this lesson is one that really tanks people's scores sometimes. There's a huge variety in answers in this lesson 3. So some kids got the tiniest little in number and just creeped up. And some kids that were behind, maybe they had lower numbers, all of a sudden got a big number and they soared right ahead of us. So each lesson can really have a big change in the total score depending on that element of chance. Now, take a look at lesson 3. It's 1, 2, 3, 4 pages long. we need a D20. That's a lot of questions. So you're going to go to your dice. You're going to get rid of that D12, that 12-sided dice, and you're going to roll a D20, 20-sided dice. Now I'm going to do number 13. So I look over here on number 13, and I'm actually glad I rolled number 13 because that one's a little tricky. Take a look at why. It's a little hard to see. There we go. Take a look at why number 13 is tricky. In number 13, it's asking us to identify if this is a rate table. Does it have a constant rate as it goes up each time, or is it not? So let's see. It went up by how many? Went up by 8, went up by 6, went up by 2, went up by 4, went up by 4. That's not a constant rate. But the trouble is, how do I get any points when all I have to tell you is it's not a constant rate because the number it's going up by is changing each time? We decided to try to make it fair that if you got a problem like this that didn't have a numerical answer and you got it right, it was 25 points. So I got that. So now I was at 41. Now I got 25 more points from lesson 1-3. So now I'm at 66. Now, remember I told you I got to decide if I wanted this to be silly or fun, or silly or serious. Well, I like to make it both. I like to make it learning, and I like to make it silly. So in between each lesson, you can pause and have a bonus round. And how we did it, if you remember, is in between, one person gets to choose a silly bonus that kids have to try to do. One of the ones that we did was you have to try a whistle happy birthday. Etc., etc. Now, if you do it, you get 25 points. If you don't try at all, you get 0. If you kind of do it, but a lot of it is, well, it's probably somewhere in the middle. You get to decide how many bonus points you get according to how things go. So if that was your bonus in there, and I did mostly, and I just had a few places where it was a little unintelligible, you couldn't quite tell, maybe I give myself 20 bonus points. So now I'm at 86. Now I go on and go on and go on. You want to keep playing through to the end of the unit. You don't have to do it all at once. You can pause, take a break, come back the next day, kind of like one of those unending games of Monopoly. Anyone else ever have those where you're playing Monopoly and it just goes on, day after day, and you just can't stop? This could be like that, but I kind of hope it's not because that's a little annoying. But you want to make sure that when you pick up, you keep going so you end up playing all the way through lesson 115, because then you will find as you go, you'll find things that you say, oh man, I don't really know that as well. And you'll know what to practice. Plus, it's really fun. What happens when you're the winner? I don't know, your bragging rights, you get to win. You get to be the first person to, I don't know, drink a glass of water. I don't know. Whatever it is you decide with your family and friends, enjoy playing, and we'll see you next time.